Good day and welcome to Drew's Book Reviews. Let's talk adaptations. There's a lot of really great stuff going on in adaptations from book to screen, whether that's small screen or big screen. There's so many really good stories to tell and so many great adaptations in the works. So I thought I would start today with a series about adaptations. The good, the bad, what I'm looking forward to, what I'd like to see adapted. Today we're going to start with the bad. I'm going to talk 5 adaptations that I've seen that were just... So, if you're interested, stay tuned. That is coming right up on Drew's Book Reviews. All right, so let's talk bad adaptations. These are things that probably shouldn't have been done because they just didn't know how to do them right. But before we get into that, let's talk about my Discord. You could join me down below, I'll have that linked, and you could have a chat with me about all these adaptations and, maybe you disagree with me, maybe you don't. Maybe you think there's some really bad adaptations I should have included in this list. Who knows? You can also join me over on Bookstagram. So this is just going to be 5 particular adaptations that I've chosen. There are a lot of adaptations, and there are probably many more I could have picked to go on this list. These are 5 that I have personally seen, and I just didn't think were good adaptations. So let's talk about this. Let's start with 1984 David Lynch's Dune. This was just terrible. The special effects were cheesy, the acting was cheesy. In general, it just looked like a really bad, low-budget, terrible adaptation. I mean, this came out at the same time as Star Trek, and Star Trek had better effects, better special effects than 1984's Dune had. And it just looked bad. I am so glad that we're having a new Dune movie come out that has a good budget behind it, that from everything that I've seen is going to look like a really good adaptation. This Dune movie coming out is not a remake of 1984's Dune. 1984's Dune was just terrible. It didn't look good. It sucked. To that one. So yeah, don't watch it. If you haven't seen 1984's Dune, don't watch that one. Go watch the one coming out in October. I've already seen enough from the little bit of footage that I've seen. The one coming out later this year is definitely going to be better and worth seeing. So yeah, 1984 David Lynch's Dune, just terrible. All around, not a great adaptation at all. The second one I put on this list is MTV's The Shannara Chronicles. Now, admittedly, this is probably of the ones on this list, I would probably say this is probably the best one on this list, but still wasn't a great adaptation from my perspective. Now, admittedly, it's been a really long time since I've actually read the Shannara Chronicles. One day, I think I might go back and reread them. But when I first heard Shannara Chronicles was being adapted to TV by MTV of all networks, my first thought was, oh no, you've got to be kidding me. MTV? They're not exactly known for high quality content in my humble opinion. They just didn't feel like the kind of network that should be tackling this project. Shannara is like 20, 30 books now, something like that. It is a massive world, and to have MTV of all networks try to adapt this, I mean, Sci-Fi would have been a better channel for it. HBO definitely would have been a much better channel to attempt this kind of adaptation, but MTV? Like, really? And yeah, it was okay. It wasn't great. Definitely I put it more on the bad adaptation side of things. I just didn't enjoy it for it being the Shannara Chronicles. It definitely was based off Shannara Chronicles. The elements of the Shannara Chronicles were certainly in the show, but overall it was like a world loosely based on the Shannara Chronicles. Not really the Shannara Chronicles themselves in a lot of ways. It just, yeah, meh. So the next one on this list, I haven't read. Shouldn't say I haven't read. Yeah, I haven't read. I haven't read any of Full Metal Alchemist as far as anime goes or manga goes. I'm not an anime fan. I'm not a manga fan. But I did watch the Full Metal Alchemist live action movie with my daughter. And I didn't even have to read the manga to feel like it was a terrible adaptation. You know, even my daughter, who is a huge manga anime fan, said it was horrible. The acting was cheesy, the setting was cheesy, the effects were cheesy. It was just downright terrible across the board. Just horror. I mean, it honestly looked like it was maybe, I mean, if it was put together by a bunch of, you know, amateur YouTubers with a low budget, yeah, sure, I suppose it would have been okay, but that's not what happened here. This wasn't just some, you know, group of YouTubers who got together to make a movie out of their favorite manga on low budget YouTube level of production. Not to say that YouTube is a bad level of production, of course. There's a lot of really great YouTube out there, but it just didn't feel like a professional thing. It felt really amateurish from watching this movie. It's just not that great. Acting was cheesy, setting cheesy, it was clearly low budget, and it just was not a very good live action adaptation. I was cringing just watching how bad this one adaptation was. And my daughter, who is crazy about anime and manga, I trust that she knows and she felt the same, and I didn't even have to read the manga to figure that one out. So yeah, this was just a terrible adaptation for Full Metal Alchemist, in my humble opinion. Not the greatest at all whatsoever. So next up on this list is, apparently there's a Dresden Files TV show. Now, I love the Dresden Files books. Jim Blitzer does a phenomenal job with the Dresden Files. It is a fantastic series of books that I absolutely love. But that TV show is just terrible. I barely made it through the first episode, and it only took one episode for me to say, no way, I'm not gonna waste my time with this terrible, terrible adaptation. Maybe one day Dresden Files will get an adaptation that's worthy of it, but not this day, not this series of Dresden Files. Just low budget fan fiction, poor quality acting, terrible effects. Didn't follow any of the stories from the Dresden Files that I could figure out or recognize. So it's like loosely based on the same idea as the Dresden Files. Maybe throwing in Harry Dresden and Murphy in the same character names, but that's about it. It just wasn't a good adaptation. I mean, where's the guy's Beetle? There's no Beetle in it. He's got a rundown Hummer truck thing for his car, but in the books it's all, okay, maybe I'm nitpicking here because he doesn't have the same kind of car he has in the books, but the fact of the matter is this Dresden Files adaptation was terrible, absolutely terrible. Don't watch it, don't waste your time with it. It just was not a good adaptation for Dresden Files. It wasn't that great, not at all. And I really hope that if Dresden Files is adapted again, don't remake the terrible one, do it right. Get a good adaptation because there's so much potential within that series. And you know, as a book fan, as a booktuber, as a book lover, and my fellow nerds can recognize this, when we have an adaptation happen, we want to see the stories we love done well and portrayed well. And when adaptations don't meet that standard, when they're done poorly, we're just mad, we're angry. And there's a way to do an adaptation to please the current fan base of those stories while still bringing in a new audience. Happens all the time. There's several examples of that. So you got to do it right from the start and not just do it regardless of the resources you have, and just do it because you, well, I mean, let's make a good adaptation when we do. Now, the last adaptation I want to talk about on this list of bad adaptations is an adaptation of one of my favorite book series of all time, and that is The Sword of Truth by Terry Goodkind. This is a series that I named two of my daughters after characters from this series, and I absolutely love it. And a while ago, many years ago, there was a show on called The Legend of the Seeker. This show was based around the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind, but it was a poor adaptation. Now, of all the adaptations I've mentioned, I think The Legend of the Seeker probably has one of the higher production values behind it. I will give it that. I don't think the overall production quality was necessarily terrible or bad. I thought the production quality was good, but the way they approached the adaptation just was not great at all. It just wasn't good. Too many things have changed. For one, Caitlin Amnell was supposed to be the last confessor in the world. But apparently, in the TV show, she still has a sister that's alive. She is, in fact, not the last confessor, which kind of throws off that entire aspect of the story in the world that's been created. In addition to that, the Lord Rahl TV series, the Lord Rahl, or Darken Rahl, is portrayed as Richard's brother. This is in fact not the case. Darken Rahl is in fact Richard's father, not brother. And then Panis Rahl is supposed to be his grandfather, not his father. So they changed things around a bit in that respect, which maybe this is nitpicky. Okay, maybe it's nitpicky. I don't know. Maybe it is, but I just didn't like that. I thought it's like, no, that's not right. That's not how the relationship is. That's not how it's supposed to be. No, like, it just drives me up the wall when I see the adaptation and the characters have changed too much. It's, great, you kept their names. You kept the characters' names. Good on you. But you completely changed the relationship that they had. Darken Rahl is not Richard's brother. Darken Rahl is Richard's father. And to change that relationship, it irks me. One of the other things, the problems that I found with this series is that what we had here is there is a part in this series where Richard is captured by the Mord Sith, held captive and tortured for an exceptionally long period of time, well over a year. Time frame has passed within the book series. What did the TV series do? One episode. He's captured, tortured, and rescued and saved in a single episode. Like, you could have made an entire season worth of content out of that story and plot line, but you did it in one episode. It's like you were rushing to a conclusion. The torture that was involved was nothing. Like, he wasn't even there for that long, a couple of hours. Like, ooh. I mean, come on. Did you even read the books when you made this series? Or did you just say, hey, this looks like a cool thing. Let's just buy the rights and completely butcher and destroy it. Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a rant about this one because honestly, this is one of my favorite series out there, and it's one that I really love, and I'm gonna go back and reread at some point. And it just irks me when an adaptation happens and your beloved characters, your favorite plot lines, your favorite stories are so completely convoluted and twisted and destroyed as far as what it really is. I mean, when it comes down to it, Legend of the Seeker was not Sword of Truth. It just wasn't. Legend of the Seeker was fan fiction set in the Sword of Truth world that happened to have characters with the same name that have similar roles within the world. That's about it. And it just was not a good adaptation. I really hope one day a much better adaptation happens because this one was just not that great. Maybe if I'd gone into it never having read the books and knowing nothing about it, I might have enjoyed the show more, but it failed in so many ways as an adaptation, and I'm not happy with that. I don't like what happened with this series, and that just really drives me up the wall. So there you have it. 5 adaptations that I really did not enjoy, that I thought were bad adaptations. Don't watch the adaptations, stick to the books. In this case, when they say the book is better than the show or movie, they aren't joking. This really applies in these cases with these adaptations. The books are far better, which is usually the case. But these 5 series prove that axiom true, in my opinion. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this little bit of a video about terrible adaptations. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join me over on the Discord so that we can have ongoing conversations about these and other topics and other books. Whatever you want, you can join me over on the Bookstagram. I'll have that link below as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep on reading. Bye.